This is another talk I did in February 2022 before the war in Ukraine, basically going through what was happening on the day and the time, and it was about the Munich conference that they had. Unfortunately, no talkie, it's ended up in fighty. It's sad that it's ended up that way. Here's the talk. UK-Iran. Boris is saying that, well, that's Prime Minister Johnson, is saying that Russia plans the biggest war in Europe since 1945. Yep, let's have a big one. We've been waiting for 75 years. We need a big one. He's saying that there's evidence, doesn't tell you where it came from, but it's going to be the biggest war in Europe. Yep. He's saying all the signs are that the plan has, it's in some senses it's begun, it's started. He says intelligence is that the Ruskies are going to invade and they're going to circle the capital, Kiev, and he said that human life could be lost in it. And that's always the case in any wars. We had a storm pass through the UK a few days ago, and this storm in the media, in the sabre rattling, seems to still have a few MPH still to run in it. But this has been on the go for the best part of a month to 6 weeks. The papers seem to lap it up and give some column inches, and it's also, some people say, diverting attention from some of the shenanigans, possible misdemeanours that happened in number 10 with Prime Minister Johnson. Some people say that. He was in Munich when the world leaders, President Biden didn't turn up. He sent the Vice President across there. He didn't have time. It's for an annual security conference. And the US is now suggesting that the numbers, because each day you've got to ramp up the fear factor. You just can't let it stay the way it was. For weeks and weeks, we had 100,000, there's 100,000 Russian troops, and subsequently that's been upped and upped and upped. And now the Yankees, the US government, saying it could be round about anywhere up to 190,000. So obviously, the betting, get yourself down to laddies and see if you can get some sort of each way on when we're going to get more than 200,000 Ruski troops. So the Yankees are saying it's up to 190,000, but just be aware, this figure also includes the rebels. This is the ethnic Russians that live within the borders of the current UK reign. So who knows how many rebels are there. You've got to remember that America started out as a bunch of rebels as well, and subsequently turned into whatever it's turned into. Prime Minister Johnson warned that the conflict could be bloody, could be protracted, last a long time, that is. And he did like a little ad hominem attack on President Putin, and he said that he was possibly thinking illogically about it. He cannot have the right frame of mind. He must be thinking illogically about this. He went on, and the old chestnut, the sanctions against the Ruskies, and it's going to do a lot of things. It's going to stop the Ruskies doing a lot of things in the UK, allegedly. And you just cannot let the Ruskies get away with it. Look what they did in Crimea, he said. The real bits of the story is he's saying that this is going to strengthen NATO. NATO is basically just an American-led coalition of Britain and France, with the other ones just putting hangers on into it. And Johnson said, if he thinks he's going to get less NATO, he's wrong. No, it's going to get more NATO. We're going to double up new, improved, super improved NATO. And who's going to pay for this? Well, we'll just have to get some more money, get some more defence contracts, get some more possible money flowing to other companies, then we'll just ramp the taxes up and we'll take money away from, the country's in fine state. It's in great state. So we've got plenty of money. we don't need to be worrying about putting all this money into more military spending. Now, to date, no invasion of Ukraine by the Ruskies has taken place. But as ever, we've got to keep the fear factor, got to keep that ramped up to the max and just crank it up a little bit each day. So he's got, like if there's going to be a war, it's going to be a big one. So some people say that this is allowing Johnson, President Johnson, it's allowing Prime Minister Johnson to take a more statesmanlike, because he likes to allude like Churchill. That's Winston Churchill was his sort of like one of his faves, and he looks forward. So he likes that association. He likes the honour by association. If it's his name. Russia obviously says we don't think that Ukraine should be joining NATO because it wouldn't be good. The Yankees didn't want any weapons in Cuba because that wouldn't be good. So that was a long, long, long time ago in a different place in Camelot. And we've got them all fake flagging each other. We've got basically the kids in the schoolyard shouting at each other saying, you did this, and no, you did this. No, you did this. No, it was you that did this. You threw the first stone. No, you threw it. Blah, blah, blah. So the Ruskies say, no, we're not invading. We're just putting my troops there doing some exercises that we normally do every couple of years. And then we've got the United States President James Biden. He's told the people that Russia's hey, they're gonna invade from everywhere. Yeah, then everywhere. And he's saying it could be the biggest war in Europe since 1945, just in terms of sheer scale. Who's going to be doing all this sheer scale? When you consider World War II and what happened in World War II. World War II was won on, there was the time element, there was the material element, and there was the manpower element. And Britain provided the time. It stopped the Jerrys for enough time to allow the Jerrys to attack the Ruskies, kept the war going till the Japanese attacked the Americans in 1941, Pearl Harbor, and brought them into the war. So Britain provided the time, and America provided the materials. In essence, the productive capacity of America, the tanks, the aeroplanes, the landing craft, the boots, the jeeps, the trucks, the material, the ships, the aircraft carriers, the munitions. America did the bulk of the work. And Russia provided the blood. Depending on which books, depending on which reports you look at, the numbers are astronomical by any standard. Some say 20 million, some say 25, some say 30 million. Whatever the figure, it's a horrendous number of people. The German army was bled by the fight in the war in Russia. And it was the Russian people in the Russian Red Army that took the brunt of that. All these allusions to wars, Russia didn't start the war in WW2. Russia was brought into it just as America was. But Russia was the country more than any that changed the course of the Second World War. Big battles, Stalingrad, big tank battles, Kursk. These were huge battles. Make battles like El Alamein just look like Sunday school outings. Millions of people, millions of soldiers involved. Thousands, millions of Russian people died in WW2. I think the Russians know the cost of the war. The unfortunate thing in the UK is that the Labour Party, which is the party in opposition at the present time, is backing Prime Minister Boris Johnson, backing him. They are saying that, we are backing Boris, we are backing Prime Minister Johnson and NATO, blah, blah, blah. No attempt to moderate or find a working solution. No, we're just backing NATO against, not looking at any way, keep things, find a solution that suits both. The papers, obviously not all of them, but some of them go front and centre with the Ukraine. Similar stuff, rehashing things that they've said quite a few times, self-determination, blah, 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 blah. At this conference meeting, Prime Minister Johnson made a statement. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was saying. It's a guilt by association statement. He said that after an invasion, that Russia would not be able to contain. But the main thing that he said was a lightning war would be followed by a long and hideous period of reprisals and revenge and insurgency. The word in there is lightning. In German, it's Blitz. The expression blitzkrieg will be familiar to any people that used to read the Victor or Commando comics when they were younger. Blitzkrieg is the lightning war, the rapid advance of tanks and military personnel in association with the Air Force. The blitzkrieg, the lightning war, is used exactly the same. This is Boris, I'm sure, trying to, for a guilt by association. The Germans used a blitzkrieg, and here he's stating a lightning war by the Ruskies. So he's trying to associate the Ruskies with the Germans in WW. Boris, as I say, likes to be in the honour by association bracket. He likes to be thought of as an updated version of Churchill. Boris wasn't the only person from the UK government at the Munich. Mrs. Truss was there as well. She's the foreign secretary, and she wasn't going to let the fallacies go to waste. So she came up with our own fallacy, which was if you let this happen, then this happens. And it's like a slippery slope. And she was saying, if you let President Putin and the Ruskies do this now, the Baltics will be next on the hit list. This is like, what can you say? To me, it's a weak argument. It has no basis. The basis for what's going on at the present time is what's happening in eastern Ukraine with the ethnic Russians there forming a breakaway rebel sort of that they want to join Russia. So as I can tell, it's got absolutely nix all the other Baltic states, Lithuania, Estonia, those sort of places. It's a poor argument. It's just like last week in the papers, you had pictures of grannies with guns. This was in Ukraine. This was evocative of we'll fight them on the beaches type of thing. There was an old lady, looked in her 70s, lying on the ground with like an automatic Kalashnikov AK-47. I don't know if it was an AK-47. I'm just using that as a type of automatic assault type rifle. If it wasn't an AK-47, then it was some possible derivative of it. But the main thing was this elderly lady lying on the ground, photographed by quite a lot of the Western media, appeared in quite a lot of the Western papers, trying to evoke this appeal to emotion. You know, look at these poor people, even grannies with guns are lining up to the Russian hordes. Whether the granny with the gun fights the Ruskies, whether the Ruskies invade, to my mind, it's got nix all to do with us. It's got nix all to do with anybody in the UK if they don't want to. The people that want to are the politicians, and the politicians that want to big themselves up. Maybe they want to obfuscate other things that's going on at the present time. And maybe they want to spend more money on defence. Maybe they want to shunt more money into certain companies in contract. At the bottom, you've always got to look for the economics. You've always got to look for where the money is going. I'm not saying that that's what these people are doing, but I'm just saying you should be asking the question, why do we need to spend more money on military spending? Health services on its knees, needs more money. Lots of other things in the UK need money spent on it. Certainly we don't need to be going off gallivanting into foreign wars in supporting people, cutting my noses off to spite my face, stopping Russian investment in the UK. It's craziness. And for to get the trifecta up to bamboozle everybody and to ramp up the fear factor in the UK, if you just thought, okay, it's just what's happening in the Ukraine. No. We've got the Secret Service people in the UK warning you need to protect yourself from preemptive measures, defend yourself from cyber attacks from them damn Ruskies again. There's a lady, Mrs. Cameron, she's National Cyber Security. She's saying that there's a cyber threat. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But isn't it nice and convenient that this comes out on the weekend when we're rattling the old tin we're rattling the old sabers. We're trying to ramp it up as much as we can. The Yankees are doing their best. They've ramped the numbers up to 190. Obviously, early next week we'll get it over the 200,000. That's even more. Yeah. If you weren't afraid at 100,000, you should be frightened at 190, and you should be quivering by the time it gets over 200,000. As far as I'm aware, none of these are going to be coming to the UK. So why should we be bothering about it? So they're ramping this up, and they are saying that critical infrastructure, utility companies, communications, food companies, they've got to strengthen their cyber defences because it's just the tensions over Ukraine. And Mrs. Cameron said there was currently no evidence of the UK being specifically targeted. I'll just repeat that. She said there's no evidence currently of the UK being specifically targeted. Yet this is front page, one of the broadsheets today. She's saying that it could escalate and we could see cyber attacks. We could also see aliens and we could see Bigfoot. And the last two I've just added. We could. So Boris was saying that the UK is going to provide NATO with more military forces. And he's saying that we've got the biggest increase in military spending for a generation. We're unable to maintain our own borders. So work that one out. So we've got Mrs. Patel. I think she's the Home Secretary. She's saying that there's an escalation of Russian info, and we should expect to see more of this. Information warfare, cyber attacks aimed at the West. She's saying that anything that happens in the Ukraine wouldn't just be a foreign quarrel. I disagree with Mrs. Patel on that. As far as I'm concerned, that's all it is. It's a little spot, hundreds of miles away from the UK. It has no bearing on us, to my mind. Just let them get on with it. And she's saying that the Ruskies have been trying to infiltrate using the cyber attacks against different companies in the UK. Nothing specific though. And like I say, we've got these people in the cabinet all running around, all ramping up the fear. And obviously Mrs. Truss, she was saying that get ready for war. Let's see how we can sort this stuff out to both parties. Just get ready for war. Talking stopped, get ready for war. It's really dangerous at the moment, especially with the Met coming with the Partygate revelations. And we've got President Zelensky. He's the president of Ukraine, and he's in Munich giving the speeches as well. Everybody's cheering him on. And he said the refusal of some of the countries to provide lethal aid, he says, that's just like appeasement was back when Adolf used to run amok in Munich. And he says his country's going to fight by itself with the test tube. He says we're defending the whole of Europe. Honestly, the Russians invading the whole of Ukraine, and I certainly can't see them coming out of the other side into Poland, into Germany, across France, through the Channel Tunnel, up the M1. I cannot see that happening. So realistically, I think it's a load of twaddle. And he's saying that the European countries should be an appeasement, giving him more. And British people, the British intelligence people, these are the people that did the dodgy dossier, remember, that got Britain involved in the Iraqi type wars and places like that. The intelligence people, they're saying, yeah, Putin's given the go order. Yeah, it's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to be like some false flags, few skirmishes, then Naji's going to pile in and are going to take over. We could just take a little bit of it, just where their ethnic Russians are, that would be the limit. Or they could take the whole country, or the world, or wherever we can float and make people as scared as we can of. We're still trying to ramp up this siege of Kiev, and that the Ruskies are going to missile it out of existence and stuff like that. Personally, I cannot see that. Personally, I can't see any of this. Or what I think possibly may happen, a few little skirmishes, a few little subversive troop movements, a few bits and bobs. The border sort of moved slightly westward. These people that are ethnic Russians sort of subsumed into Mother Russia. I think if people left it at that. If they could come to some sort of agreement where the Ruskies paid the Ukrainians some sort of financial recompense, we'll give you a few billion rubles for this, wherever it happens to be, 20 mile of Ukraine. It's basically, realistically, part of Russia. It's got Russian-speaking people. They all want to be part of Russia. How about we'll give you some gold, and we'll call it quits, and you let us keep this more of a, I don't know how many miles it is, 20, 30 mile in Ukraine, and there ain't any war. And then on the other hand, the Ruskies will have to back down and maybe allow the Ukrainians to be in NATO, but no nuclear missiles on the border. Something along those sort of lines. It would suit both parties. Ukraine could join NATO, Ukraine could join the EU, the Ruskies could get their people subsumed into Russia. Everybody can go back to making boast and vodka, and Ruskies can export the gas. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. That's why the Yankees are involved.
Alert from backup not completed.
That's what the Yankees are involved in this. It's got very little, to my mind, to do with the people in Ukraine. It's got to do with Nord Stream 2 and the amount of Russian gas going to Germany. Americans don't want that. They want the Germans to buy gas in dollars, and they certainly don't want them to buy any more Russian gas. The false flag is the Americans saying that they're concerned about the people in Ukraine. I think that's a nice, convenient thing for them to do. So we've got the associations going. We've got Liz Truss associating with the slippery slope, and we've got Boris trying the guilt by association. And every one of these things comes down to how can we get Adolf or remnants of Adolf into the conversation to line them up so that we can compare people to him. So unfortunately, apparently there's been some people killed out in Ukraine at the present time. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, whoever they are on whatever side. I don't think there's any need for it. You could say, but that's Ukrainian land and it should always be part of Ukraine. My argument to that would be borders change. Borders are mutable. Borders change over time. Take a look at virtually every country in the world. The borders have changed at one time or another. If people want to work these things out, they can. The Ruskies should be able to put a few shekels on the table, sweeten the deal for the Ukrainians. I don't think Ukraine wants to be involved in a conflict long term. If that's what the peace is, surely that's a better outcome than this protracted, ongoing guerrilla type warfare where the eastern part of Ukraine has declared itself as an independent country, republic, whatever you want to call it. People didn't want that. I don't think so. Arrivederci.